So I wasn't a huge fan of A Quiet Place Part 1. I didn't hate the film, but with the amount of praise it was getting at the time of its release, I just didn't understand why it deserved it. It's definitely a great concept for a thriller, but to me it felt hollow due to the simplicity of its story structure and lack of character work. The first act of Part 1 sets up an interesting world and conflict between the daughter and John Krasinski's character, but once shit starts hitting the fan, the movie kinda loses me because it's at this point that you're constantly given these tense sequences with the monsters, and the character building kinda feels like it's pushed to the side until the resolution. It's like during the second act, the characters suddenly all regress into becoming another generic family in a horror film. Especially on rewatch, now that I'm expecting the scares, there's not much else to really dig into during this movie, which is why I don't revere Part 1 as being the suspense-driven masterpiece that a lot of people think of it as. To me, it's good, but just not that good. So now that we have a Part 2, I was interested to see if this one would improve at all on the first, especially for me since I'm kind of in the minority for the original. In this sequel, we pick up right after the events of Part 1, with the Abbott family now on the run to find a new place to survive. So right off the bat, I do think Part 2 worked better for me as a whole. For one, this sequel fixes my biggest gripe with Part 1, which was the lack of character work between the monster sequences. This movie introduces a new main character, Emmett, played by Cillian Murphy, and this guy really elevated the movie for me. While John Krasinski's character Lee was this brave, almost Captain America-like dude, Emmett is more of a broken man, and watching his scenes with the daughter character, who is more similar to her father, made for a really good character pairing. It's unfortunate because while I like their side of the story, this movie does separate the group along the adventures, so Emily Blunt's character and the other two kids definitely get the less engaging storyline. There are other human characters in this movie, but I won't really talk about them for the sake of spoilers, so all I can say is that I wish they too got some shred of character writing. For some reason, I always feel like in these movies, anyone other than the protagonist feels like an NPC in a video game. The plot also feels more purposeful and engaging this time because they set up an actual goal here that the characters are trying to achieve. In Part 1, I felt like the protagonists were too passive since they were mainly reacting to the dangers the monsters were putting them in, while in Part 2, the characters are putting themselves in danger in some cases because they want to. That alone made their journey in the sequel feel more compelling to me. Even the way they chose to progress the story I thought made a lot of sense. Another reason why this is a good sequel is because it also does more to expand this movie's world. While the first movie focused on one family, this one gives you more of a glimpse into how other people are dealing with this crisis, which I thought was cool. Yeah, again, they're kind of like NPCs in a video game, but at least they gave us something. The opening scene in this movie was also really interesting to see. If you've seen the movie, you know that the constant fear of what we know is about to happen was a great use of suspense and, in my opinion, definitely beat the opening of the first movie. However, I don't think the ending was as impactful as the first movie, but I did feel like the implications of it are more intriguing, especially if they do go on to make a Part 3. So yeah, I'm gonna give A Quiet Place Part 2 a 7 out of 10. It maintains the great suspense and performances from the first movie, while also adding just a little more meat to the ongoing story and characters, which I definitely appreciated. If you love the first movie, you're probably gonna like this one just about the same or even more maybe. So if you've seen the movie, did you like Part 1 or Part 2 better? Comment down below and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like these.